Saraswati Thakur was speaking about spiritual revolution, and he said he wants to open a temple in every heart. How would that spiritual revolution to be, I mean, everything Vaishnavas say must be substantial and real, how it would look? What would be ideal picture of that?
Well, what Maharaj is alluding to is that we can say, under the guidance of the conception of Raghunath Das Goswami, Vairagya Yug Bhakti Rasa Prayatnai Apayayam Manabipsamandam Kripam Buriyat Paraduka Duki Sanatanastam Prabhumashrayami. I mean, this is not generally funny, but I'll answer your question in another way later. But Guru Maharaj said that Saraswati Thakur gave an example that in relation to this sloka, so if he said it, I mean, forgive me for laughing uncontrollably, but what he said was, and probably they have more experience of this in India and in other places, is sometimes they need to feed a horse medicine, right? And it's not an easy thing to do. He said, so there's a big group of men. They start, like one guy grabs the horse's neck, the others have his leg, and they hold this horse. And then they push the medicine in his mouth. They force it down his throat.
Yes.
That's the way. That's what it looks like. And I know you're saying I was going to say something really sweet and wonderful.
Wow.
Well, wait, I'm not done.
That's a good start.
Right, but that's actually how you do it. You have to grab them and force it down their throats.
Well,
the medicine. But now, that's a metaphor for it. So, what do we find? Tyaktva sudushta jasurepchita raja lakshmim dharmarj yadagaranyam mayam rigam doita epsitam anvadavad bande mahapurushite charanarvindam. What does it say here? Mayam rigam doitam epsitam anvadavad. Mercifully, Mahaprabhu is running after those jivas who are chasing after Maya. Right? So the jivas are chasing after Maya, Mahaprabhu is running after them to try and capture them. So then he devises some ways and means to capture their attention and for them to revere, on some level, express some appreciation for his Krishna conception. On some level. So he's saying, all right, then I'll become a sannyasi and they have to bow down to me. That'll be good for everybody. Because then what'll happen is someone, because he was a sannyasi, they gave respect to, what is his name again? Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Chaitanya. So he's devising these ways and means. What does Saraswati Thakur do? Pujala Ragapad Gaurava Bange, Matala Sarojana Vishaya Range. This word is so apt to be misunderstood or misinterpreted that Gurudev told Guru Maharaj, I want to change it to Kirtana Range, especially for the Bengalis who, people outside of Bengal, they don't know what it means. But Vishaya means generally, it's a reference to what is mundane. So Guru Maharaj said, what does it mean? What was his original idea? Guru Maharaj used the word bait. Like you put bait on a hook to catch a fish. So he said, there's different types of bait And he mentioned, who was that? Jagannath Das Babaji? I think it was Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. He would give rasgullas to children if they'll take the name, say Hare Krishna, or Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hare Krishna. All right, good boy. He'd give one a rasgulla, someone else a rasgulla. So, I mean, that's a sweet way of enticing. There are other ways to bait people and bring them in connection with Krishna consciousness. Guru Maharaj says when the earliest devotees met Saraswati Thakur, although they're highly qualified by sanskar, by birth, education, born in Mahaprabhu's land, in many instances, Vaishnavas from birth of some status in some particular line, and they're saying they couldn't understand what he was saying. The intensity that he's delivering it with, right? He's pounding on the table, the blood's flushing to his face looks like a pink lotus flower. So Saki Charan Babu told Guru Maharaj, he said, we couldn't understand something, but mainly couldn't understand what he's saying. He said, but we could understand was that he's trying to, like his example of the horse, forcefully push some nectarine substance into us. That much we could understand, with great earnestness, intensity, etc. So, in that sloka, of all people, I mean, Raghunath Das Goswami, we think of him as the personification of Vairagya, right? Raghunath Das, who, right? Stri Apsara, Indra Aiswarja, Stri Apsara Sama. Gurudev liked to quote this in Govardhan, which is the place of Raghunath Das Goswami, that he's got had wealth like Indra and a wife as beautiful as a goddess from heaven. And when the mother and father are scheming how to keep him bound to family life, and the mother suggests shackling him, just like the way you shackle a prisoner around the ankle and then some chain, and then he can move around the house, but in that way we'll be sure he won't leave. But what is the father's response? He says, how can you, he said, look, we already shackled him with a wife as beautiful as an Apsara, and he's got the wealth like Indra. If this doesn't do it, then he said, what can you do to someone who's become a madman for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? The father knew it's just a matter of time that we will lose him to this. But it's that Raghunath Das who we think is of the extremes of Vairagya in his pastimes. He says in this prayer to Sanatana Goswami that I was unwilling to drink the nectar of Vairagya. Vairagya, you Bhakti Rasa Prayana. But Sanatana Goswami Prabhu, who is he? Kripam Buddhi Yat Paraduka Duki. His only duk, suffering, is seeing others suffering in absence of Krishna consciousness. It doesn't say he's suffering, seeing people for want of food, for want of shelter. That's not what's breaking the heart of Sanatana Goswami. What's heartbreaking to him is there's this nectarine, immortality-inducing nectar that people are separated from. Krishna conception, the beauty of Krishna conception, the charm of Krishna conception, the sweetness, and the life-giving nectar, immortal life-giving nectar of Krishna conception. Being separated from that, that causes some pain in his heart. So Raghunath Das is saying, so seeing a fallen soul like me suffering in this world, and he was a wealthy man, right? That's the point here. He's suffering. It's not only the materially impoverished, but this quote-unquote wealthy man with the wealth of Indra and the wife, the Apsara wife, the supermodel wife. He said, Sanatana Goswami, he, out of his mercy, He forced me to drink this nectarine substance, and now I'm addicted.
So I have a short statement. So
Yeah.
if someone who has great wealth and beautiful wife watching this program now,
Right.
well, he can sincerely admit he's also suffering.
Right. Yes, he just won't admit that in front of his wife.
Right, but
Right.
that's a great statement. But one thing, there were so many great revolutionary, great people who wants to do something good for humanity.
Yes.
Who's even willing to sacrifice not only people,
Right.
you know, so many people died in
Right.
capitalism and
Yes.
so many other movements.
Right.
Even willing to sacrifice themselves for some great cause.
Right.
So when you said about giving the spiritual nectar forcibly,
Right.
could that be misinterpreted in a wrong way? That
It could be.
so
Yeah. But here's what I'll say to that. Guru Maharaj pointed out something interesting. There's self-sacrifice and self-forgetfulness. And it's amazing. He extracted this from the Christian priest at the school teaching. Right? He said, they told us that really higher than self-sacrifice was self-forgetfulness. So then he extracted from there, and then he applies it here. And we know the famous sloka where Sanatana Goswami, where Mahaprabhu says, Sanatana, that Deho Tyage, Krishna Paye, Jari Nahi Tyage, something like that, where he says, Sanatan, if, Kanake, at every moment, if you could get Krishna by, killing yourself or becoming a martyr, then I'm ready to die 1,000 times at every moment.
okay.
But that's not how you get it, right? So Guru Maharaj is saying, still, when you're sacrificing yourself in that way, there's still some implied expectation of a result. He said, whereas self-forgetfulness means you're so absorbed in the other that you've practically forgotten all self-consideration, but not self-annihilation. The self hasn't been annihilated, but it's so deeply absorbed in the other that no consideration of what's beneficial to me or any possible remuneration or gain that I'll get from this transaction. So that's really the highest level sort of spiritual transaction. So here, what I will say to this is that genuinely, men of spiritual substance, their interest lies in bringing others in connection with that spiritual substance. If someone wants to call that in its most generic sense immortality, they can. But as we've told in Guru Maharaj's parsing of the Kurma avatar, and we were talking about Kumbh Mela and that, immortality is the most superficial aspect of spiritual existence, right? Even if we want to say Sat, Chit, Anandam. So Guru Maharaj says, all right, Sat, fine, but consciousness is finer than that, and consciousness has a target, which is feeling. And what is that? Anandam, ecstasy, love, affection. This is what's the heart is really searching for, right? Beyond transcending material circumstance and situation. So the Vaishnavas, they're trying to bring someone in connection with that plane on some level, to extend it to them and have them on any level express some appreciation for that. Because the least swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahatobayat, the least affinity or appreciation expressed for that saves one from the most dangerous type of even material situations. Right? So that's their idea of giving someone something substantial. That's why just to finish this, when we were in where's the big lake in Russia? What's that place called? No, it's another one. I'll think of the name later. We were there many years ago, and and we're staying with one devotee at the house, and his sister's kind of like listening in on the programs, and one day goes by, 2 days, and she's thinking like, she raises her hand, you're always talking about Krishna, and you're all here happily talking and hearing about Krishna. But why don't you do something valuable, like go out and you know, distribute food to people, or clothe the poor, or, you know, but you're all sitting here night after night, you know, talking about Krishna, you know, and very happily. And so I realized, yeah, she thinks this is of no value. In her world, feeding the poor, that's a valuable thing to do to somebody. And all this talk about Krishna, how does that really help anyone?
Well, if it can bring immortality to someone.
Exactly. Well, so what do the Braja Gopis say? We're hearing that Mahaprabhu embraces Pratap Rudra Maharaj. When he's a king, Mahaprabhu wants nothing to do with him. But when he comes with this Gopi Gita, Mahaprabhu is saying, you've just given me something that's so valuable. The only thing I can do in response is give myself to you. I want to hug you. And what is it when he says, Tava katamritam tapta jivanam kavibir iditam kalmasha apaham sravana mangalam srimad atatam bhuvi grananti te buridajana. So this is what they say, and it's very interesting too, because they're saying to Krishna, Chakravarti Thakur will say like, yeah, Krishna, I thought you come to relieve everybody's suffering. People are burning in the fire of material existence, and one avatar after another, you're descending to save them. And all your different incarnations, you know, and you're in other words, an endless stream of merciful descents into this world in form of avatars, incarnations, etc., to relieve the suffering of the people in this world. They're saying, what about our suffering? Does it apply to us, the suffering that we're feeling? And what is implied here is really the root cause of all suffering. They're saying in this, they're feeling separation from Krishna, and that's applicable to them at a higher level. What's the problem here? Is also separation from Krishna. But Prabhupada put this very nicely in his Gita, where he said, the original capacity for prem, for love, has been pervertedly manifested as a lust for matter. But it's the same thing. They're not two things. That's why it's Atmendriya Priti Ichadari Bolekam, Krishnendriya Priti Ichadari Prem Nam. That hridrogam, that heart disease that I want to consume, right? That's what is the cause of suffering. We're really, what we're searching for, that sweetness, that love, that affection, that beauty that you think you'll get by acquiring, controlling, and consuming the mundane, and it's not extinguishing the fire in the heart. They're saying, Kalma Sha'apaham. When we talk about you, we find that talking about you relieves that suffering of the heart. And then they say, you know, Srimad Shravana Mangalam. So beginning, hearing about you, that's the beginning of auspiciousness. For even someone who's suffering in this world, and you know, whether it's self-induced miseries, miseries from other people, or miseries from the environment, socio-political, historical, whatever it is, the beginning of the end of that, the beginning of relief for them is when they start hearing about you. And wait, and why would that be? Then we have to understand something about who and what Krishna is. If he's beauty personified, love personified, affection personified, and as the absolute has the capacity to not deal with a few or just a select few, but to reciprocate every atom of every soul's hankering, and the absolute must be nothing less than that, right? Who can personally reciprocate the hankering of every atom of every soul and deliver to them what they're searching for. That's the absolute. Then we can see by inference that really what people are searching for is Krishna. And if someone brings you in connection with Krishna, brings you the talks of Krishna, the topics of Krishna, they say, Shravana Mangalam, that's the beginning of auspiciousness in that person's life. what does it lead to? Srimad Atatam, they become imbued with eternal lasting wealth, not the kind of wealth here that vanishes and the dot-com boom, the start market financial. Eternal wealth, and then what does he say? Srimad Atatam, Bhuvi Grananti Te Buri Dajana. The people who do this in this world, they're the real altruist, humanitarians. They're really helping people and giving them something substantial.
That's great, but here's the question. You talk about consumerism, which
Yeah.
is, everybody can realize consumerism
Right.
is the enemy of the progress, no matter how you presenting. But can people try to consume Krishna? It seems like we try to consume everything.
No, they can try.
Nature, the
Right,
philosophy,
right. So in the
art.
in the beginning stages, someone, because we're accustomed thinking of ourselves as subjects and everything else as our object to be consumed by us, because we're thinking that's our enjoying method. We take objects and we extract something from them. And then sometimes it lasts a short time, a long time, sometimes it's intense, sometimes it's mild, sometimes it brings reactions in the aftermath, the hangover, the this, the that, the other thing, the karmic reaction to it, but that's our method. So there's a strong tendency in the beginning, coming in connection with Krishna consciousness, to view it as something objective. So we want to consume the image of Krishna, the sound, we want to have Krishna music in our lives, the Krishna wallpaper, that Krishna's we're going to remain as we are, consumers, right? Exploitationists,
Right.
but we're going to put pictures of Krishna on the wall and pump in pleasing Krishna music and burn the good incense. You know the good incense, right? Right. So we're going to burn that and chant the name, and it's going to make you high forever, man. Right? What did the devotee, this was a little bit of their bait, and that's another thing. Yeah, don't swallow your own bait. All right, this is my advice. Do not swallow your own bait. Don't become victims of your own propaganda. So the devotees in the psychedelic days of the 60s, they would adopt some of the slogans, like the famous one, turn on, tune in, drop out. But it was like, turn on to the most progressive spiritual movement, turn in to the... They tried to segue, but one of the things is they'd have like a picture of Prabhupada looking ecstatic, and there are many such pictures because he was. And then it would say, stay high forever. So people would think, I'm going to get this mantra, I'm going to chant this name, and I'm going to stay high forever.
Right.
So and Allen Ginsberg, what did he say to Prabhupada once? He said, maybe the people of the Kali Yuga are so fallen and Krishna's so merciful that he's incarnated as LSD. So then you just drop LSD and you get Krishna consciousness. Now, Guru Maharaj's response to that is, no amount of the finite can produce the infinite. Right? The sum total of the finite will not generate the infinite. Any reconfiguration of matter will not generate what is spiritual. And herein lies the flaw in materialism, and even in its most benevolent form as humanitarian, we think, if we give people, the good water, the good sanitation, this, that, and the other thing, that automatically their consciousness will raise, they're conscious beings. Unfortunately, not. So once one man was arguing with Guru Maharaj against Gaudiya Math, and he was going like, Swamiji, the Boy Scouts, they're doing good work. They feed people, they feed the poor, they distribute clothing. Why don't you do something like, then I can support what you're doing if you're like the Boy Scouts. And Guru Maharaj's response to him was, he said, all right, he said, suppose a man is dealing with dogs as dogs. Right? Like sometimes people have a dog hospital or something like that, animal hospice thing. So where they're giving them food, medicine, repairing them, and people think, all right, that's a good thing, pay it, pet it, whatever it is. But Guru Maharaj said, but suppose another man has a program where he deals with dogs in such a way as they're transformed into human beings. He said, that's our program.
Okay. Can you describe that program?
I've been describing it.
I mean, we spoke about consumerism. Now we can say that
so is
how
right.
someone can
So
evolve.
all right, let's go back to what we just said. So even Krishna consciousness, if we think of it in an objective way as something to be consumed by us, and we'll extract some juice from there, you can have a connection like that, but it's in Vedic terminology what's called karma kanda, or projecting your wants, desires, wishes upon the higher, in other words, the lower position. We're projecting on the higher and calling it divine, divinity, etc. It's part of why Vyas was chastised by Narada. He's saying, you didn't mean to do this, but really clever people will figure out a way to use what you've said to remain bound in the material world and religious, saying they're following religion. Right? So you've got to give it to them straight, pure, the beauty of Krishna conception that's so irresistibly charming that it can break the bonds of even the strongest mundane attraction, which is the erotic principle. So only in the Krishna conception of divinity do you have the full-fledged expression of erotic potential, right? And spiritual terminology. But to get from here to there, then as Guru Maharaj told to the man who told him that, if you wanted a donation for humanitarian work, maybe, but to build another a temple where you're going to talk about Krishna, and no. And Guru Maharaj told him remember, he hadn't used this example previously. He meditated on Saraswati Thakur deeply, thought, what am I going to say to this man? He just doesn't get, what do I say now? And that's when the Vikriditam Brajabaduvir slok came to him, but in a very high sloka and a very practical way, where it says, Hridrogam appears, heart disease, and then Guru Maharaj turned and said, sir, when the Atma who's going from one species to another and evolving an evolutionary process from one species to life to another, when I was in the body of an elephant, I ate a jungle and I wasn't satisfied. When I was in the body of a stool-eating pig, I ate a mountain of stool, and it didn't satisfy my hunger. He said, so what people are suffering from is heart disease, hridrogam. It's a spiritual problem. The material problems are obvious, and no one would be unsympathetic to that. No reasonable, generous, kind person. But that is not the root cause of material existence. The root cause of material existence is a heart disease, a spiritual condition. Voyeuristically envisioning ourselves as consumers, and here we're going to make consumer synonymous with exploiter, an exploiting agent. So trying to acquire, control, and consume to achieve that happiness that we want. Whereas the inversion is through spiritual culture, reconceiving yourself as a dedicating unit. That there's something, instead of trying to consume things that are lower than me, is there something higher to dedicate myself to? Now, then humanitarians, they'll say, yes, it's to the needs of the poor people. But you see, this doesn't compute. You're back to what's lower than you. You say, oh, we're going to supply them with, as conscious beings, what's lower than us, material objects. When we give everyone that, we've met our obligation. No, that's not dedicating yourself to a higher principle. Like in India, they used to have this expression, Manava Seva is Madhava Seva. Service to man is service to God. Or then you get this type of Brahmavad, the Mother Teresa idea, Christ is in the poor. Well, if you're going to go that far, he's in the rich, he's everywhere. Why would he only be in the poor? Let's just get into full-blown Mayavad and Brahmavad. He's everywhere, he's in everyone. So by serving rich people, I'm serving Jesus. I mean, these are all half-baked ideas. They're not fully fleshed out. They don't press them toward their natural conclusion, because you'll find that it's faulty, it's impartial, and not on target.
Okay. How would you make a clear statement about a human ability of serve? Because still, based on what you've said, as a service mood rather than consume.
Yeah, to dedicate. So what is higher to dedicate yourself to? And how is your dedicating yourself something higher helping the man in the street? Let's add that to it, right? How is it that, you mean, saving yourself would be saving others? That seems like some kind of self-serving, selfish way. So I see, oh, very conveniently, you can ignore all the suffering of other people in the name of saving yourself. You're doing the highest, greatest service to the world. Is that possible? Right. So what do we hear? You know, Shraddha Shabde Vishvasako He Sudrida Nishtroy, Krishna Bhakti Koile Sarvakarma Krita Hoy. Really, theistic theism, the basis of theism, at the basis of it, is this idea that I focus all my energy exclusively in this one place, and that simultaneously serves everyone everywhere appropriately. Now that's a great ad,
Right.
you know, for and say, all right, that's your claim. Any examples that that's possible, or that it could be true? I mean, you're saying that, okay. Is there an example of that? So, what are the examples given that follow this? You know, pouring water on the root of a tree. We can say each leaf represents a different cause. And let's say a noble cause, a worthy cause. Then you realize, I'm one person. There's innumerable leaves of noble causes on this tree of existence. Which one do I pick? So that, oh, we've got the United Fund. Just give to us, and we give a little bit to everybody. That'll work. Is that true? But they're back to objective treatment, not subjective treatment, dealing with the root cause of suffering. So the example given, you pour water on the root of all existence, and then through that type of service, it's the inverse. Service to God is service to man. In this way, you can actually benefit others. And that's the basis of theistic culture.
Well, very interestingly, you declare something with everybody aspiring for immortality as a superficial aspect of divinity. Can
Right.
you just like reveal this statement, make it clear?
Yeah, I mean, to say it in just common parlance is nobody wants to die. Immortality is like this big, you know, they use it in a movie trailer, immortal, the immortals. Like, the way people normally deal with it, to make it even more base, is like, I don't want to die. And people who say they're not afraid of dying, they're just, we know what it is, right? No one wants to die.
They have no choice.
Right, so then, since it's inevitable, you can say, it doesn't bother me. Once I was in Washington, D.C. in a taxi. This is when I was younger and a little wilder. So I'm preaching to the taxi cab driver, and he's there and I'm doing, you know, Janma Mrityu Jaravyat, birth, death, and he goes, you know, death doesn't bother me, you know, and I went, oh, really? So he doesn't know me, right? I grabbed him by the shoulder, and I started shaking him. And he like pulls over the car and goes, you almost got us killed. I said, whoa, wait a minute. 2 minutes ago, you told me you could care less. Now you're sitting here, you're shaking, you know, get out of my car. Wait, you told me death doesn't bother you, right? I'm not, for the youngsters out there.
Did he charge you or he let you free?
He wanted me to get out of there free.
Well, so that means you value his life also.
Right. But he said, it doesn't bother me, you know. But what were we? About immortality. So this is what I want to say. And it was a beautiful example of Guru Maharaj. And here's how things work, right? This is how things can go from ordinary to extraordinary to super, super extraordinary, right? Because Guru Maharaj will say, just as a footnote, we're subjects, Paramatma's super subject, the spiritual world, and the super, super subjective world, that's the way it goes. It goes subject, super subject, super, super subject, etc. Anyway, so there's a nice Indian man coming to our temple in San Jose, right, where we're preaching about Guru Maharaj. I think his name was Satyanarayan. And his wife, they're one of the first couples that came, this beautiful Bengali couple, Arun and Alpa Banerjee. The husband's a NASA rocket scientist, literally, right, would come and sit on the floor humbly, super qualified. So he and his wife, the first Bengalis to come, and this other man, Satyanarayan, his wife and family, South India. So he comes to India, we're going, please meet Guru Maharaj. So he visits his hometown, then comes to Navadvip, and so I'm saying, oh, Satyanarayan Prabhu, please come and meet Srila Guru Maharaj. He goes upstairs, he's talking to Guru Maharaj, and they're just having an ordinary conversation, right? Like, where are you from? And so he mentions where he's from is like Kurmak, Kshetra, and South India, and go, oh, I know that train stop there. It's a hill station or something, but it has, Kurma in it. But he's not asking Guru Maharaj any spiritual. They're just having a polite conversation, and then he's a very, humble, shy man. So I see, all right, it looks like he's not going to ask Guru Maharaj anything. So him, myself, Sagar Maharaj. And there's no conversation going on. So I had just read the last chapter of the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam. So it's like fresh in my mind, and I'm thinking, 18,000 slokas, right? 10 cantos to get to Krishna's pastimes. 9 cantos to get to the 10th canto, where you're going to hear Krishna Leela, how cautiously, how much backstory they've given to qualify the readers up to that point. But still, 12th canto, last chapter of the 18,000 work Maha Purana, Super Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm thinking and not many verses in that chapter. So every one must have some special significance. So he said he's from that town within Kurma. So I said to Guru Maharaj, I just read the 12th canto, the last chapter of the 12th canto. It's around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So normally it's light. We don't get into heavy discussions at that time. That would be in the morning. And I said, but there's this sloka there about the Kurma avatar. And while we revere that pastime, I don't understand why this is the crescendo, the conclusion of the great Bhagavatam. And this Kurma avatar sloka is there. Prishte Brahmya Ramanda Mandara Giri Gravagya Kanduyana Nidralo Kamatakrite. Gurudev liked it very much. Guru Maharaj also. So I was saying, Maharaj, I can't understand why it's there. And then Guru Maharaj became very silent. And he's like, and it was like dive deep into reality in real time. He left this plane, went into his internal world, and didn't speak for some time. And I thought, I looked at Sagar Maharaj. And I said, I was going to say, Maharaj, you don't have to, it could be another. I thought I'm taxing his brain, because this was an original question, and he's going to answer it in an original way. Right? He's going to generate, so he's looking deep and scanning, and I'm starting to say, you don't have to, I'll just let it go. And he cuts me off, and he said, when the devas and the asuras were churning the milk ocean, what was their object? That's how he began. And he said, Amrita. Now, in the word Amrita, we know the Sanskrit word, one of the Sanskrit words for death is mrityu. Amritu, amrityu. Amrita is that which counteracts mrityu, death. So, on the most basic level, Amrita is sometimes called the nectar of immortality. Right? That's like its generic description. So they'll say, what do they want? Remember, on one side, you could say, are the objective evolutionists, the asuras. On the other side is the subjective evolutionists, the devas. Right? They're both churning the same stuff. Right? Even Nietzsche says, there are no facts, there's just interpretation. Right? That's one of his better statements. There are no facts, there's just interpretation. So they've got the same set of facts, but the interpretation is different. So there's the objective evolutionary asuric idea about what is immortality, what's life, all of these things.
Enjoyment.
Exactly. Enjoyment, life, meaning, existence, reality, there's a perspective there. And that's our option, to explore that perspective and all of its, facets. On the other side, they have an idea. And it's also in gradation. It's not just one idea. There's different gods. There are varying levels of understanding, realization. We can understand that. But Guru Maharaj's point, he begins with, what was their object of both? Right? So it's not just sometimes saying, the spiritual people want this, material people want that. No, we all want the same thing. That's not true. We're the ultimate pleasure seekers. No, they're just denying themselves. No, base things, on that level you can, but actually we're real pleasure seekers. We want the ultimate pleasure, stay high forever. We're going for the real thing there, right? Not just an empty slogan. As Guru Maharaj said, it's not the pursuit of pleasure, happiness. He said, no one will say, I'm not interested in being happy. I don't want pleasure, right? Unless someone is just mad. Right? So everyone, atheist, agnostic, theist, we are all pursuing the same thing. We're going about it in different ways, and we describe it and express it differently. Right? So there, he says, what is it? They want to get Amrita. Right? So what happens when they're churning, and we know they're in the milk ocean, this is beautiful. Right? What is from the inconceivable mind of God? How is he going to respond to this situation? Right? It's a teachable moment, as they say, right? But his pastimes are multidimensional. What would come from the mind of God, how to descend in this circumstance? They're having some problems with the churning situation, right? What does he know? He descends as the Kurma avatar, a turtle. Right? And people will always say, can God make a rock so heavy he can't lift? There are always, these very primitive speculations about the inconceivable power of divinity. So he doesn't play that game. And just to answer the point, he can make a small rock so big he can't lift it. Like when the Braja Gopis ask Krishna, can you lift that? And he can't lift it. So he just touches it. Or he can alternately withdraw the gravity of Govardhan Hill and lift Govardhan Hill on the pinky of his left hand when he's, 5, 6 years old. Right? So let's not get silly. But what does he do here? From the mind of God. Right? He's a turtle, and he can't. The more interesting thing for him is what he can't do. He could do anything. So he has to make up stuff he can't do. So he has an itch on his back. And as we all know, we're Mame Vangsa Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanat. there's some itches you just can't get by yourself. And, so you need somebody else's help. So what do? Mandara. And this is all to address the original idea. This could only come from the mind of God. So he has an itch on his back. He's a turtle. He can't reach it. We could say, well, wait. Adbhutakram, he of wonderful stride. We just celebrated the Vaman avatar. He can do all, he could make his arm reach and touch that. And this pastime, he can't. This is the beauty of it. And this is where it transcends rational thought. And if you can follow this, then you can be liberated from material existence. And like that. Right? So he can't reach that. He needs help. Right? So they put the Mandara hill, a mountain on his, because he's a large tortoise, on his back. They wrap Vasuki around the hill. You got the Asuras, the objective evolutionists on one side, the subjective evolutionists on the other side. They're like this. The hill's going like that, and it's relieving the itch. And what's his response? When they get, you go like, ah. But this is the infinite going, ah. And when he goes, ah, it generates the Vedas. So divine, liberating sound vibrations come out of his breathing to save everyone from themselves, mainly. Right? So, and they're churning. Who's coming out? Lakshmi Devi appears. Right? The elephant of Indra, others. The moon spins out and starts orbiting the earth. The moon comes out of the Kshirsagar. The ocean. So anyway, it's many things, right? But they see, well, by this churning process, some poison, what do you call that? What's the right word for it? Byproduct. A poisonous byproduct.
Of nectar.
Well, is coming, because you're, just like when you churn, you get the curds in the whey, or the cream, and So they're saying that this other poisonous substance is, the opposite of immortality. It's death inducing. What do? From the mind of God, the pastimes of the infinite, Mahadev Shiva. He's drinking that poison, then Nilkant, right? Little effect. That's his pastime, but makes it, he looks even more beautiful with the blue, peacock blue neck. Right? So, and now finally that substance has been generated, then Mohini Murti comes to take it, and there's the rest of the pastime. But here's the point of Guru Maharaj. And because what's my question? I'm saying, why? That's all good. You can say, well, that's very good. This is a wonderful divine pastime. Why is it in the end of the 12th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam? What Srimad Bhagavatam, Guru says, Artoyam Brahmasutranam Bharatartha Viniraya Gayatri Bhasya Rupo Sho. This is it's the natural commentary on Vedanta. It's the Gayatri Bhasya. So what is this Bhagavatam all about? Now Guru Maharaj is moving towards saying the reason this verse is being included here is saying what they were searching for ostensibly is immortality, the nectar of immortality. But he's saying, what is that really? What is that substance? Remember? Tava katamritam, tapta jivanam, kavibir iditam, kalmasha apaham. The Braja Gopis are saying, hearing about you, this relieves all suffering of material existence, enriches one with unlimited spiritual wealth, and beyond. And if anyone can bring you in touch with this, they're really lifesavers. They're saving your life. So Guru, what is that substance? What is that nectar? Is it some kind of, in a painting, a pot with some type liquid in it? He's saying that substance is Madhura Rasa. That's what it is. Madhura Rasa is the life-giving, immortality-giving, ultimate nectarine substance. And that's what's being distributed through the Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's why the Kurma avatar, pastime, and slok is mentioned here. To say, really, what you thought before, dive deep into reality, that substance is Madhura Rasa. And that's the whole subject matter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the whole of the Madhura Rasa is dependent upon one person. And her name is Srimati Radharani, Radha Dasyam. And you'll get connection with that substance and service to her holy lotus feet, which is the ultimate noble, dignified, higher plane to dedicate yourself to. So, so he's saying, that's what it is.
So if we can say people who searching this sacred baths and Kumbh Mela are missing?
Yeah, well, it'll come back again to capacity. So someone's thinking, liberation from suffering, mukti, get free from all the suffering. It's so horrible, there's so much suffering in this world. We got to stop it. Put an end to it, right? But then someone else, no, but to live forever. But like in some of the Greek myths, where someone, he says, oh, they gave me, eternal life. I forgot to ask for eternal youth. Damn, So live forever for what? Now, so you got sat, you're sat. Hey, guess what? You actually live forever. Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. Jivas are eternal. You didn't gain anything in this proposition. You're already eternal. So, but because you're deluded into the objective world, you're riveted on this thing about not dying. But it's impossible to live forever in the objective world. And by nature, you're eternal. So just to be granted eternality, that's the innate constitutional right of the soul from the beginning. So wait, the goal? Right. So then to be conscious, as the person said, like, I'm eternal and conscious, but I forgot to be young. What is he implying? Sense pleasure. Right. So we know the body doesn't offer eternal sense pleasure. And we want eternal sense pleasure. So it means sat, chit, then we need anandam. And what is the cap and Brahma saying? Sat, chit, ananda, vigraha. Oh, then real eternality would be to have a form endowed with sensuous capacity, erotic potential, eternally in a world beyond time and space. That's the spiritual domain. And that's what Narada told Vyasa. You have to let people know there's another life that's possible in another world that's not like this. Otherwise, they'll think the only place you get to have any fun is here. And the other place is boring. It's eternal existence. Right? You're there with God. Punish anybody lately? Nah, people are behaving themselves. What are you going to do there?
So I'm trying to say that we always pay by one thing for another thing. So how you measure eternity and love, eternal love? What is the kind of like?
Well, first of all, we should wonder, why is it that we're repeatedly expressing these things in songs, in poetry, in novels, and motion picture, everything. We revisit these subject matters repeatedly. Right? People find themselves in a position where they're expressing eternal love to someone, when we know statistically, objectively speaking, it's not true. right? And mostly, and as time goes on, it's more and more not true.
Sure.
You know, we're not sure how much it was true before, but we at least, now that we keep records on all this stuff, we know the potential for these eternal relationships to dissolve.
30 days.
Yeah, or for, you know, I love you forever or until you're 40. You know?
Until you're fat.
Right. Right. You know, so there are many different objective criteria that somehow, dissolve that love. And we're still hankering for this eternal love scenario. So then, it's like we're told in the Madhya Lila, and it says, you know, Krishna Prem, Jambunada Hema, is that it's Radharani's expression through Mahaprabhu. That Krishna Prem is not a thing of this world. It's like gold in the rivers of heaven. And what do we hear in the Bhagavatam? And again, if you can believe it, there are heavenly planets that have mangoes the size of elephants. The mangoes fall from the trees and they're just full of juice. The juice forms rivers that create gold on the banks. This is described in Puranic literature about heaven. It's in the Bhagavatam. So he's saying, Krishna Prem is like that gold, like the gold in the rivers of heaven. It's not a thing of this world. So then what are we doing? You yourself are saying it's not a thing of this world. But stop for a second. We didn't say it's impossible to connect with. We're saying it's not a thing of this objective world. What is expressed in those stories, that eternal love that's in the song, the story, the movie, etc., is not really a thing of this world. So, oh, that's just in the movies. Right. But does that mean there's not a plane where it doesn't exist anywhere, not even in the movies? No, so we understand. So we're hardwired to seek this, to seek something that we're trying to address through objective culture. So it's a purely subjective thing that we're trying to feed objects to.
But wouldn't people say, well, this sounds like idealism, and there were different types of idealists in the human's nature and history, starting from Greeks, going to Europeans.
Yes,
and you're, with your idealism, you overcrossing the reality of this life.
Yes, there are many things that we value are not objectively verifiable.
Okay.
Right? Like humor.
Okay.
Like what we like, things that are funny. Why? I mean, humans are the only animals who really laugh. They go, no, there's a laughing hyena. No, that doesn't count. Right? Right, well, I'm just saying. So we laugh, right? We cry. You're going to say, well, animals wail. That's true, because they're approaching human. You know, they wail when their baby's taken away, things like you start feeling. So what we're all about is feeling, right? Not just objective things. We say, oh, well, we can make you feel better with chemistry. Better living through chemistry, right? Or as one author said, he said, there's got to be more to life and the story of life and the possibility of life than the narrative that says, you know, my chemicals were bad, I fixed them. Wait, so the idea is just about chemical balances. Happiness is nothing more than a particular type of chemical balance. When the things that we're really hardwired to seek, beauty, love, humor, right? I can't prove to you that someone is beautiful. I can't prove love even exists. And statistically, we could make a case that it doesn't exist. And we could say, like they talk about the God delusion, we could write a book called The Love Delusion. Why is everyone searching for this? No one has it. They're all lying to themselves. It doesn't really exist.
Right.
But there's an element within inside us that can't accept that.
Okay.
that it doesn't exist. And even in the face of heavily anti-statistical evidence that you won't get it, you're not experiencing it, we'll still search for it. So it means, really, as subjects, we're in a situation where we're spiritual subjects living in navigating a mundane environment, searching for subjective inner fulfillment. So then it becomes obvious we need to repurpose ourselves in addressing that inner fulfillment. When we try merely to acquire, control, and consume objective things, it doesn't produce the type of joy that we're seeking.
What produce joy? Is that acquire, conceive, consume?
Subjective, the culture of subjective pleasure.
How will you describe the process?
Well, I already just alluded to it, but what we described. Wait, where do we hear this in story? Remember, there are no facts, just interpretations. We hear stories. We hear stories of great love, and it resonates. It affects part of us. So it means that we're actually seeking to live in the subjective world. That's what I'm saying. Actually, that's what we want to do.
By what?
Just like when someone goes to a movie, they really like it if they'll say, if you just forget yourself and live in that for 2 hours. So we're the only species who really does that, or to the extreme in human species. So what it really points to is we want to live in the subjective world, and we're at present halfway between the objective and the subjective world.
But I want to say something.
Yeah.
Someone I just met, one government official, who come to my lecture, he said, "It sounds like you're a very nice person, you're a good fairy tale teller.
Right.
Like you tell nice fairy tales, and maybe for that kind of group people, this is okay. But how can you prove me that what you're telling actually is true? I can accept that psychologically."
No, you can't prove it in an objective sense.
Well, prove me subjectively. Like
Right. In other words, like if we're sitting looking at a master artwork in the Uffizi Museum in Florence by Leonardo, I can't prove to someone that this is great art, it's a masterwork, but if that person's willing to hear, to undergo some study, then it's possible that they can come to the point of appreciating the depth of beauty, the subjective aspect of what is there.
But in a short way, can you say something in favor of subjective worlds? Just principles of subjective worlds exist.
Yes, I just did. By saying we're always seeking subjective things.
Okay.
Like we're attracted to hear a story. Right? Whether it's true or not, doesn't, like as they say, if you want to tell the truth, write fiction. Art is a lie that tells the truth. So we're not really concerned about its objective aspect. When we look at the beautiful Renoir painting of the flowers or whatever, they're not real flowers. Maybe a real flower, upon close examination, is more beautiful. But if an artist does some sort of representation there, we'll appreciate that.
So are you trying to say that this is our nature? Our nature, we have subjective nature.
Right.
Because it sounds like we have very objective nature. That's where we're coming down sometimes to realize ourselves.
Well, no, that's the thing. Like we're saying, oh, but look, this you're saying. I mean, this flesh and blood is not real. No, not saying that. But what allows me to feel this and see it? I'm seeing it through these eyes, touching it. What's the seat of this experience? Then we'll go to the mind. And then more refined than the mind, intellect. And where Krishna says in the Gita, and he's saying, the soul's located in even a more subtle plane. Wow. So the soul is the enabler who's enabling us to navigate the objective world and have sensual experience.
Just like, can we use a photography as example? Because many people buy expensive cameras. The pictures come out totally different.
Yeah, right. Oh, you mean ability. Yeah, well now you're back to interpretation and the eye to see something. Just like my photography teacher used to say, we can teach you processes, but we can't teach you how to see. either you have some capacity to do that, but when we'll say spiritually, the reason a disciple, you make connection with a guru, is to get the eyes to see, to be initiated into subjective seeing.
So in other words, the photography teacher tell you he can't give you vision, but guru can. What's the secret of being connected with guru?
I'll give you an example from another one of my teachers, my biology teacher. He announced on the first day of class, you know this story? Anyway, he announced on the first day of class, he said, I'm going to teach you biology in such a way as when you wake up in the morning, you're going to see biology. When you brush your teeth, you're going to see biology. When you eat your breakfast, you're going to see biology. When you go to the bathroom, you're going to see biology. And he was right. When we started hearing from him and his concepts, our life was the same, but there was this new awakening of seeing the biology when you brushed your teeth, when you went to the bathroom, when you ate your breakfast.
So that means that the guru principle is not some imaginary.
Well, what we'll say is this, not only is it not imaginary, but the word many people have heard is rishi, okay. Like the Maharishi, or they always say Rishikesh, right? So rishi comes from the Sanskrit word drishi, which means to see, to observe. So a real spiritual agent is an observer of subjective reality. This is what a guru is. An Jnaninas Tattvadarshina, an observer of subjective reality. And as Srila Guru Maharaj will say, and from that plane, what they've observed is passing through their consciousness to you in the form of mantram or revelation. Then putting yourself under the guidance of such an agent, you're now in connection with revealed truth, as opposed to objective truth, objectively verifiable things, which are just agreed upon. It's a consensus of agreed upon norms of this world. If we say kilometers or miles, is the sun, it's 93 million miles away from the earth, or it's 150 million kilometers. Mile and kilometer are, you and I both agreed we're going to call a specific thing something. And it's good if we need to make a table, because we need to say, I need this much wood, right? And so when you're working in the realm of time and space, there's objective reality. But we know time and space, whether from a theistic point of view or a scientific point of view, it will all disintegrate. Whether you say it 100% vanishes or not, that's another story, but it's all going to disintegrate. That everyone's in total agreement upon. So the agreed upon working vocabulary while we're here, we're going to use mile, kilometer, this much will be that, and it'll help us build things, and that shouldn't be confused with actual reality. And again, and what's even enabling that system of measurement, the system of measurement of the objective world, are subjective agents who are looking through eyes, using senses and extensions of senses in the form of technology to measure things, reconfigure, to navigate the world.
Can we use that word guru and say switch to word like a visionary or spiritual curator, experience curator? Because it's a very popular word,
right.
Visionary and curator.
Right.
Especially when it comes to subjective.
So you could say that, yes, that spiritual agents, Prabhupada's favorite expression, transparent via medium, they're mediums, they're curating a spiritual experience. So what they've observed in the subjective world, they're the agent or the medium for expression of that in the objective world. So depending upon their locus standi, or their GPS, where they're located, in term, not only geographically, but historically, they'll find the ways and means among that population, where they're situated, to translate revealed truth into something that's accessible to the local people. That's why the sloka says, Achinoti yashastrartam. What does an acharya do? Extracts the meaning of the shastra and shows you, us, and shows its relevance. Because how, just as I said to Guru Maharaj, I don't understand why is the Kurma avatar pastime in the end of the 12th canto. Here's the problem. He showed me its relevance that shows his acharya capacity. He extracted the inner meaning of the scripture and made it relevant to my inquiry. He could have said many things about it. Right. And showing also perfection, he answered my question and took it to the highest possible answer. Answered me on my on my most base level. Why does it appear there? And then took it at the same time, in the same breath, to its highest possible level of answer and expression.
Isn't what like art curators, visionary writers, poets, some people trying to do? They try to reveal to certain.
Yeah, there's a parallel. It's a there's a parallel there. But then we can also understand what's the capacity of the curator.
Well, what is capacity to those who he's trying to curate?
Right. That's also there. But then we know on finer things that they employ the method. They believe in giving exposure, and that, avriti sarva shastranam bodhadapi gariyasi. You don't have to, you may not need to understand, let's say, art. Right? They just keep seeing what they know is the real thing, the substantial, the higher stuff. Keep exposing you to that, giving you some education along the way, and the day will come where you'll have an epiphany, and what they see, you'll be seeing that. Sure. That's why the Veda, Guru Maharaj said, it's not as important to understand the meaning. Keep hearing. Like we sing the songs every day, we hear certain slokas over and over again. Keep hearing. We read Gita over and over again, and then at a certain time, and here we add service. You can't be antagonistic or envious of the teacher or the agent in spiritual life. In the material world, you might despise your teacher and get the knowledge of the information. Spiritually, that doesn't work. Therefore, the respectful approach. Attitude. And actually, really, it's true materially for the most part. When a child goes to school, you tell them, put full faith in your teacher here. I know my own experience. The first nun I had, my first, Sister Paul's. We thought, Sister Paul's, our teacher. We believe everything she says, without hesitation, without doubt, without suspicion. So the transmission is very rapid because of that depth of belief. Then went to another grade, second or third grade, and Sister Paul wasn't there. There was another sister. And at first, I was upset because I had so much faith in Sister Paul, I couldn't understand why she's not teaching me. Where's my first grade teacher? And they said, no, she'll be teaching you here. Then I learned to accept that teacher, give that faith, and this is the way of progress.
Okay, yeah. I think our time is
Hare Krishna, yes.
Tomorrow we'll talk about faith.
Hare Krishna.